Hello and welcome to the Real Exes of Portland podcast, coming to you from Portland, Oregon. I'm Heather.
I'm Sofie.
And I'm Amy.
And we are real women, real friends with real stories.
That are super juicy.
And I might add, real boobs. And we would love for you to follow us on Instagram at The Real Exes Portland. And we will be hanging out with you guys every Wednesday afternoon.
And you know what Wednesday is?
Wine Wednesday.
Cheers.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us again, everyone, on Wine Wednesday. Everyone raise your glass to get started. Clink.
Cheers.
Cheers. Drink.
Drink. Okay. Anything else?
Drink.
Put it down. Look at it.
Oh my gosh. So here we are once again. And, you know, we are going to be goofy as usual and juicy as usual. And
We just don't know what kind of juice comes out.
what about the juice coming out?
It might be sour, sweet.
Oh, you
Yeah.
never know.
a little
never know.
raunchy.
Oh my God. Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know what to say. I'm a little tongue-tied
I'm
today.
sorry. Did I
I
do
normally the words just flow, but I'm a little bit not sure. So I'm just going to kick us off, welcoming everyone. And today, Amy is going to be doing a little update on her self. The suspense. What is she going to talk about? So, Amy, take it away. We love you.
We love you.
We love you.
Let's see. I was trying to think all week, like, how do I go into this?
Oh,
but
yes.
I will just start from the beginning. So this is about my 1 year kind of anniversary, so to speak, to an injury that has literally changed my life and not necessarily for the better. So July 5th of last year, I was walking out of bowling like at 11:30 at night. It was on a Tuesday, and it was a big group of us, and I was walking out of these double glass doors into a parking garage, and everybody was behind me. And as we were walking out of these glass doors, within like a minute maybe, a lot of things happened, but basically a truck screeched into the parking garage and some guys were laughing and threw out a mortar into the parking garage that of course went off in the parking garage. And had it not been the 4th of July the day before, it sounded like a bomb. Like my husband said, I would have ducked. I would have grabbed you and ducked had it not been the 4th of July the day before. But we knew that. And so
You said a mortar. Like, what do you mean?
like a mortar is one of those fireworks that explodes in the air, like one of the illegal ones in our state.
that they buy in Washington.
That they buy in Washington. Yes. And they let it off. I saw the vehicle. It was like a yellowish cream truck. Because I'm taller than everybody else and I could see above like the walkway, but it screeched out and it was so loud. I'm not joking. I felt like my brain blew up in my head.
Wow.
It was so horrible. I never heard anything so loud. And I remember grabbing like the left side of my head. I have a history of headaches and migraines. They are on the left side. And this happened on the left side of my head, like area.
You heard it like from the left side.
So I heard it from the left side. And it literally is like when a firework goes off in your head and all of a sudden within seconds, I felt like my head was mush. I did end up driving home. I just thought it was like super loud. And of course, nothing, you don't know what to do. Like you just go with whatever. But that parking garage, it was not only so loud, it was a big mortar because that entire bottom level of the parking garage filled with smoke, and you couldn't even see 3 feet in front of you, the entire parking garage. And that whole bottom parking garage doesn't have sides, so it opens up to like the outside, and then the top level, there's no roof on it. So that whole bottom level, literally you couldn't see anything in front of you. It's a huge parking garage, so it was a big firework.
This sounds like a scene out of a movie. I mean, this is crazy. Did you guys able to chase them or get a license plate?
No, at that point in time, it was, I mean, they, as soon as it went off, they screeched out, and that was it. And so I end up driving home because I actually like to drive. And so I did feel kind of funny, and I had had a small concussion the year before. Something fell out of a closet and clocked me. And I only felt symptoms for like 3 weeks, but that's the only other thing. So I drove home, and I went to bed right away. I took some medicine, went to bed, and the next day was Wednesday, and I felt off. I felt weird. My brain did not feel right. It's kind of like when you're so hungover that you literally, I mean, you just can't think, like nothing, but I wasn't hungover. And so then that kind of made me a little nervous. And I would talk to the kids, and I would talk to Brian, and they're like, I don't know what you're saying. And so then I was working because it was a work week. And stuff I've been doing every day for so many years, all of a sudden wasn't really making sense to me. But I thought, well, maybe this is just like a really bad headache or migraine. And
because you can feel foggy. I'm a migraine sufferer too. And you feel it's foggy, but yet there's the pain also. Yeah.
And that's kind of how it felt, but intensified. But at least with that history of like chronic headaches and migraines, you're aware of what's going on and how you feel. Whereas this was like, I'm not sure I make sense in my own brain. So that kind of scared me. So by Thursday, Brian looked at me and said, if you don't drive yourself someplace, I'm going to drive you. Something's wrong. And my kids felt it too. I kept saying things, and they're like, Mom, what are you trying to say? And I had known enough about injuries from one of my kids to know that is not okay. Like when people are talking, that's like almost like having a stroke.
Those
or
are the words
aneurysm.
I was just going to say. That's what people do during a stroke. Yeah.
And so I went to urgent care. My husband had to work, so I went to urgent care, and urgent care thought I was having or could be having a brain aneurysm. So Brian
terrifying.
had to not go to work at that time, pick me up, take me to the ER, which I had a special slip to go to the ER. I was actually under like urgency, and the urgency at the time, because it was during an Oregon COVID flare last year. I had to wait 5 hours to be seen, and that was for an urgency. That's how packed it was. Yeah. But they didn't want me leaving either. So I got in. Brian dropped me off. My sister was going to take me home, and the ER doctor said, well, it seems like you have a bad migraine. We're just going to give you a cocktail, which I'd had many times before. And usually those cocktails for headaches and migraines.
Is it the shot in the ass?
It is.
I love that one.
Yeah.
It hurts like a bitch when it goes in, but it feels so fucking good.
It does. It does. And those
I've been missing out. I think.
Yes. Those are huge.
You need a
they
shot.
are amazing.
Yeah.
And those used to work for like 3 days after. That shot worked for like 3 hours.
Oh my God.
And then it was absolutely, I mean, it just like everything was ringing and not making sense. So of course, you know, when you leave the hospital, it says follow up with your doctor. And I almost wasn't going to follow up with my doctor, but they called me And I said, I am not feeling well. Like, I'm nauseous. The short-term memory, long-term memory is pretty much gone. I have a headache. I feel like my brain has thrown up. Nothing makes sense. And they said, yeah, come in right away. So I came in. That was on Tuesday. Now it's been a whole week from the incident. And my doctor, and I had Brian go with me because I wanted her to hear from him just how I was reacting, because I actually could not trust myself at the time. I didn't know what I was thinking or feeling was actually what was actually coming out. And Brian had played football and had concussions, and he's like, it sounds like a concussion to me, but obviously it wasn't smacked. And she was like, it does sound like a concussion. Let me contact a neuro team.
So but you told her about the explosion.
I told her about the explosion, the incident. That's why she thought it was a concussion as well. I certainly had concussion symptoms. And she reached out with the neuro team, and they said I had and have a sound wave concussion, and it's the same kind that military get when bombs go off. And it literally like rattles and shakes in your head. And not only, headaches and migraines, you have like 5 to maybe 10 symptoms. This was like 30 symptoms, and it was all happening at the same time. And I couldn't do anything. It hurt to think. It hurt to think of mundane things. So I had to stop working right away. So I couldn't work at all for 10 days. And I had all of these specialists. So I have 9 specialists who've been trying to put me back together. And one of the best, I'm a visual person. I saw my concussion specialist. So I have my regular doctor. I had a neuro team that my doctor was consulting with and still consults with. I have my regular neurologist. I have my chiropractor, who is making sure I have shoulder, neck, head
just
adjustments.
made me sit up straight. I'm like,
Yep. I have my masseuse, because you get a concussion and it affects your whole body, but your shoulders, your neck, like your head. I have an ophthalmologist, like my regular ophthalmologist, who's part of this team. I have a neuro ophthalmologist, which a neuro ophthalmologist is basically the neurologist piece, but from a visual perspective. So my concussion, while did harm my ears or my left ear, it has greatly affected my eyes and my eyesight, which is why I can't drive farther. Like a year later, still can't drive much farther than an hour away. My eyesight hasn't changed necessarily like in vision, distance, or near or far, but my eyes will shake. My eyes, I used to get a twitch, but sometimes I'll get that twitch 24 hours for days, sometimes weeks, and it's due to like brain stress.
Is it your lid, or is the actual eye that's twitching?
My eye will actually twitch, and then it's also the lid. And so lights greatly affect me, and they affected me before this with the headache stuff. But the other piece is like, okay, well, y'all know, or most people know, I have ADD, ADHD. So like if you're driving, for me, because I'm a hyper-minded thinker, I am aware of my surroundings, and I can kind of easily shift between, oh my gosh, this car just pulled out in front of somebody else, so I'm going to swerve or whatever. But in a concussion state, you no longer have that like hyper-minded whatever. So everything that I've known myself to think and be it's now feeling like toddler mode. So I thought I could drive well during the day, but I actually can drive better at night, because at night you don't see, it's dark, so you don't see all the interacting.
It's like overstimulation if you drive during the day.
It seriously harms your brain when you're in this volatile state. So driving has affected me. So I have the neuro-ophthalmologist. I have an ENT for the earpiece of it. I have a concussion specialist. There's one more. I had a speech therapist. And I have at least two other therapies I have to do, but I haven't done yet.
You did the Botox.
Oh, the Botox is new. The Botox I just got prescribed and covered, and the Botox is supposed to work for 3 to 4 months. I got it. I felt instant pain relief from the frontal piece of my head and my brain. I could still feel like deep internal pain. But for me, sometimes the frontal pain is like the worst. And that's what causes you to like squint, and then your face hurts.
Forehead looks amazing.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, it does actually. Is the pain like behind your eyes?
It's behind my eyes. It's horribly in my temple.
Oh.
Matter of fact, after the incident, I couldn't even brush my hair. That's how bad. And I still have that to this day. It's just some days I could totally brush my hair, and other days, like these last 2 weeks, have been horrible. And it literally hurts to brush through my hair or touch my head. Like I can't sleep on that side in a pillow.
Oh my gosh.
And there's not anything you can really do. You could do the Botox, which is fairly new for that. I take nerve medication. I take some pain medication that isn't, it's tramadol, which is used after surgery, and I do take some Toradol. But the nerve medication makes you super sleepy because it's like trying to work and kind of like heal these neural pathways that are super sensitive right now. And they do help. I just feel super groggy the next day. I do take those meds at night, but there's not much else you can do. So when I saw the concussion specialist, the concussion specialist gave me a picture that was very helpful. When you have a concussion, that's just like the spectrum. And so what he said is, think of your brain as a bucket. Now, all of a sudden, each symptom you have is a hole, and it's like leaking out of the bucket. And you want to get help at the same time. You want to correct all these things.
Heather's alarm just went off, and I also have a mouthful of food.
No worries.
Pardon us.
So you wanna take this bucket. He basically says you have like 30 symptoms, and they're all pouring out of this bucket. And optimally, what is best is to heal or try to heal all the symptoms at one time. But that costs money, a lot of money. It requires insurance to get involved. It, requires 9 specialists, and I still have 2 that I haven't seen yet. And so he just said, keep thinking of it that way, is that this is a slow process. So they were hoping the healing would take like optimally 6 months, but for a sound wave concussion or even a severe concussion, it could take longer than that. And now I belong to a concussion community, and it's a lot longer. Like a year is still very much in the newbie zone. Like even 2 to 3 years is still very much in the newbie zone. So the things that I went from having 10 days off at the beginning to then working 1 to 3 hours for weeks. Then several weeks after that, then it was like 4 to 5 hours. Most days, I think it was more like 4 hours. And then in January, part of a concussion is short-term memory, or long-term memory can be gone. For me, it was short-term memory. And the state had made a phone call that I didn't return after the accident, and they had garnished my wages because I hadn't called them back to set up like a tax repayment plan. And even though I had had this accident and all my doctors filled out forms and letters, they wouldn't postpone it and they wouldn't let me make small payments.
Reminds me of something I have to do.
That just adds a whole nother level of
Yes.
stress.
So this happened in July. I literally got the letter about a week before Christmas. And so
Even at the holidays.
yeah,
Wow, Merry freaking Christmas.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So then I had to increase
gosh.
my hours, and but I was not. I didn't have permission to go back to work more hours. After I'm hearing now that I'm in this
Community.
Like a group?
the community, the concussion community. Lots of people couldn't work for a couple years. They went on short-term and long-term disability for quite some time. But I was like, I can't do that. Like, there's 3 kids at home. We live in Oregon. It's super expensive
Yes.
to live where we are. We can't, everybody's like, oh, we'll move. Well, I'm sorry. There's a,
Cost of that.
there's
That's-
the cost of that. I was like, there's dad, parenting plan, like all these things. You can't just up and move. So the other thing, so symptoms are, I used to be pretty good about losing, something would go out of my mind and then I could retract it pretty well. That doesn't really exist very much anymore. Short-term memories, like pretty horrible. Long-term memory and relationship things, I still really very much remember those things. I have horrible eye pain, head pain. I am disorientated, nauseous, balance, like vertigo type stuff is off and on. I got a horrible tremor after this in my left hand. So it did go away for like 3 weeks. I want to say around December, January, but then it came back. But it's like if I do eye makeup or put my contacts in or curl my hair, some days I can't do that. Isabel will help me. Other days I just let it go. But it could get really bad, and under stressful situations, like my sister got married and it was beautiful and wonderful, and it wasn't really stressful, but it was extremely overly stimulating.
Right.
And I shook so bad, couldn't do my hair, couldn't do my makeup, so I've poked myself in the eye multiple times. I don't really carry hot things because I've made messes on the floor. So that is a huge adjustment because I'll be in public. I don't really care what people think, but, being almost 45, there's no reason you should be shaking so bad that you can't hold something or whatever. So that's been hard. It's a blessing that what I do in my job, while the information changes every month, the procedures and steps don't change. So I don't forget the steps, but there are some certain projects that I forget to do. And so my boss just knows. He sends me a reminder every week to remind me. I probably, out of the 30 symptoms-ish, I still probably have 20. Some days it's hard to get out of bed. I'm a huge planner. That's a huge part of my ADD, but my routine, my schedule. My husband will laugh because this is literally how I survive life. But we are like 4 weeks. I plan 4 weeks in advance. Everything is so scheduled. I mean, if things fall apart, that's fine. I can handle that. But when I'm having bad head flares, I can't even get through like a couple hours, let alone a day or plan ahead a month. So this has greatly affected my life. I will say that my head, like, I think for all of us getting older, especially if you have like brain hardships like ADD, ADHD, anything like that, or a degenerative type of disease, it's hard to feel good to like work out. Let's say you break your arm. It's your brain that tells your body that you can keep going forward. If you have surgery, a couple of years ago I had surgery. My brain kept telling me when the doctor gave the okay, it's time to exercise, it's time to do these things. Okay, it's my brain who pushed me through those things. When your brain is broken,
Yeah.
and it can't tell you, it tells you barely to get out of bed, it's hard to do all the other things.
Have you ever gotten a scan?
I had a CT scan and an MRI.
And what does it show?
Everything, it's normal, like matter.
Okay.
So nothing was injured from like a
concussion, like some brain.
Yeah, it shows normal brain inflammation, but there was no like
a
blood
bruise
or yeah.
And how about, and have they ever done like those contrasting things that they can test when you're saying something and then they see what part of the brain it's using? Have they gone that far yet? Or
no, because they don't offer those things in that kind of level. They don't do those for normal concussions. Though more of
This
those
is not a
types of
normal
things,
concussion.
more of those types of things are offered in more private sector type of things. So
because it would be interesting, or maybe even help with your progress if you knew exactly what, like if it's on your left side, maybe there's other more advanced treatments that could help.
So what they do with that piece, which is, you wouldn't think this is it, but speech therapy is actually what helps with those kinds of things. Speech therapy isn't so much about speech. It's actually more about how your brain communicates with the rest of your body, not necessarily how it comes out vocally. So they give you loads of tools. So for an example, when I saw the speech therapist, I literally cried the first 45 minutes of my appointment with her, and she gave me all these tests. And one of them, I think lots of us have heard, they'll give you like 7 words or 9 words. And then they're simple words like dog, cook, simple words. And then they will tell you to give them back, like right after. I couldn't give one. I can remember one. And so then she was like, okay. And so then she would repeat those words. I even remember some of those words now. But then that first day, I couldn't remember them at all. So she gave me those first words, and she was like, now I'm going to read a paragraph. And it's like 3 sentences or 4 sentences. And she's like, I want you to repeat it back. And I remembered 2 words out of the whole thing. And she was like, okay, now do you remember any of those words? And I was like, no, I didn't remember them then. I certainly don't remember them now. And then she would have me write them, and then I would forget how to say them. And so it was literally like learning how to talk and learning how to think and speak, because it was just all a mess. And so she taught me several exercises, and they're simple exercises, but they're stuff that you had to do every day. Matter of fact, one, I felt very odd. I still feel odd to this day. Don't do it on as much as I should. But from basic thinking, I'd be like, I can't even remember what I'm supposed to remember. And she'd be like, oh, well, write it down. And I was like, I can't even remember to look at the piece of paper to then figure out what I'm doing. So then she's like, set alarms. So I set alarms, and everything had like a little label on it. And if I couldn't do it right then it was gone, and it would never come back. And so she would say, she was like, Amy, you need more breaks. And so I'd be like, okay, well, like, what does that mean? And she'd say, I need you to take like a 10-minute break every maybe like 45 minutes. So now I really have to think. Now I have to think like every 45 minutes, take a break. I'm in normal life, I can't even remember to eat a meal. So now I got to remember to take a break every 45 minutes. And she would say, when you take a break or you have to leave, let's say you have to go take your kids somewhere, you have to tell the room, the environment, your computer, whatever it is. I would have to say this out loud. I'm stopping typing this subject, whatever it was that I was working on. I'm going to take my child to here, and when I come back, I need to do this. And I would have to speak that into the air.
That does seem like it would be awkward, but
every single time I took a break.
Oh,
Because then I would forget what I would do when
Because you
I'd
couldn't
sit
depend
there.
on your brain.
I couldn't depend on my brain at all.
wow.
Matter of fact, driving. So at the beginning, I couldn't drive for like 3 months. I couldn't drive very much. I will say, actually, at the beginning, I did drive more than I was supposed to because we didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah.
Then I had to stop driving or just stay in like the bubble. And then after that, I could start driving. But I had to do things like on bowling nights, which I did quit bowling for a long time. But as an example, I would put my bowling bag up front because I would drive and literally forget where I was going. And I would have to pull over and scrounge and find something that reminded me of where I was going. So like grocery shopping, which I only did a few things, I would leave my grocery list on the spare seat to tell me where I was going.
I actually do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have to do that. Sometimes I will get out of the driveway and I either go right or left depending on where I'm going.
Sure.
And then I'm going the wrong way. I'm like, shit,
Where was I going?
where was I going again?
Yeah.
And I know that's part of my neurodiversity,
it
dyslexia, and everything else that goes along with it. It is a struggle for me, to be honest. And that for me is more distraction. Yours is an actual brain function.
And I get what you're saying because I have struggled with that in my ADD, especially when the kids were little and there was like yelling and craziness, and I'd be like, oh, now I have no idea where we're going. And I have those issues now to this day, but it wasn't distraction. It was literally my brain has just stopped working for a minute or a couple minutes.
Wow.
I have to tell the kids if they're coming with me where we're going to go and what we're going to do because they still have to remind me, you're going the wrong way. You took the wrong exit. Like, I haven't gotten lost where I'm at, but I just lose the train of thought. And still to this day, it's some things I will say, like, I've gotten better. Like, I remember the tools now. I don't always use the tools, but I remember the tools. When I forget the tools, I have a family member who has some similar issues. We can talk, and then they help me get back on track. But some of these things, though, they're like, some of the stuff feels like it was like a few days after the accident. Like, it's very apparent.
We need to protect our heads, our noggins.
Yeah.
We need to.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and I know it's pretty traumatic for kids under 5. I mean, that's where doctors like you can have permanent damage.
Yep.
but even as an adult, I've never heard of any of this until you've told me. And it totally is, it's mind blowing. And
It is.
And I know Heather and I can see your struggles.
Oh yeah.
Some days
Oh,
more
yeah.
than others.
Yeah. No,
And
absolutely.
it's
Some
definitely,
days I'm so on it and I feel it. My whole family feels it. And then other days it's just gone. Like just can't, there's nothing you could do to push your brain to work better. Like I try to, not indulge in things. Like y'all know, I don't drink alcohol very much anymore, at least not like I did before this happened. I don't drink caffeine very much. While caffeine can really help with the ADHD stuff, caffeine's horrible on brain injuries or degenerative type of injuries. And so it stimulates your brain from an internal perspective. Then you have the external piece, and it's like your brain's on overdrive, and then it just like dies like an engine. It just dies, and you just can't do anything about it. So, I started a accountability thing with a friend of mine for like eating and losing weight and not about weight, but just feeling better. Like I have some extra pounds that I for sure know are not helping me feel good. And he's doing phenomenal with it. And at first I was kind of like hard about it because I haven't worked out at all, really. I mean, I did walk a couple days, but I have to remember part of taking care of yourself and an overall health perspective is remembering the things you are doing, especially with injuries. I have eaten way more than I normally eat. I'm not a big eater. My ADD, which for me, I literally am not hungry. It happens with people, and I'm not medicated. So I know that's a common thing after people are medicated, but I forget to eat. My body doesn't tell me when I'm hungry. So now the fact that I have this other degree of not remembering to eat. So it's like I have been eating more. I hate water. I hate water. And so I'm drinking more water, and I'm trying to talk better to myself. So while I told my accountability partner, I haven't done all the things, I have done way more in some other things that are just as
Just taking a step is what matters.
Yeah, that's right.
Just a step. So you have to hug yourself and pat yourself on the back, because it's overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
Just to think about everything you have to do to retrain your brain.
Totally. It is. I have nothing. I've been through a lot of things in life and with kids. Nothing ever could prepare me for this kind of event.
Right.
And how to, go forward on something like this. And it'd be easy if I could just say it was just me, or it's me and my spouse, but it's like me, my spouse, my work schedule. I have 3 children, like 3 children to be present for, and all the other added pieces to that.
And
so
our podcast,
well,
I know,
yes,
and
I know.
I know we kind of lean and push each other, and I mean there's some we've obviously come into some challenges, and I mean we're working through it, and but I think we all need to give ourselves some grace here.
And my doctors actually did. I mean, when I signed up when we were doing our business and the podcast, and I told family and friends who knew about the injury, everybody kind of looked at me funny, like, this is another thing you're putting on your plate. However, my doctors and my specialists knew what we were going to be doing, and they did keep telling me and encouraging me that your brain heals through the things that you find passion in. Your brain heals with nature. Your brain, and that's, I mean, not just a concussion thing. That's a degenerative, that is a mental illness or hardship kind of thing. So it's like, do nature, paint. If this podcast brings you fun and support, and it is a overall good thing that makes you think of good things, it's good for you to keep doing, because it's offering you that outlet that you need to have. You need to have those outlets. Otherwise, your brain isn't going to heal from an internal perspective.
Yeah. Oh my God, Amy, I am so sorry you're going through all this. I knew parts of it, but
right.
when you put it all in like this package, it's like,
exactly. Yeah. This was really helpful, actually, because like Sofie said, I mean, we knew about it, but not really the extent of how much it is affecting, I was going to say has affected, but is affecting your life. And I know this podcast is about your story, but I'm going to put a little thing in there. I've had a brain injury before too, and we can talk about that another time. It can be a whole nother thing, but it was from a bad car accident. So a lot of the things that you're talking about, I've been to a lot of the specialists and stuff too. Yeah. That's a whole nother story. But
I don't think I necessarily put it in one place, like when you see all these specialists or whatever, it's, you're seeing your concussion specialist. So you're just talking about the concussive side. The speech therapist, you're just talking about the speech therapy side, like the Botox thing now, doing the Botox piece of it. And so up until this week, I haven't really had to put it into like a all words, big picture kind of thing. It's mostly like little pieces here and there. And that's how my life is. So
I'm sure this is going to be very helpful for people. Yeah. Either even on the compassion side to learn to be empathetic for people.
Yes. Well,
you just don't know.
Right.
You don't. And that actually has hit me so hard because we all have family. We all have family. I mean, it could be grandparents, but we all have family who at some point in time couldn't remember your name, couldn't remember memories you had with them.
Yeah.
And you don't understand until you're in your 45-year-old body and brain the hardship that either it takes to remember or the loneliness you feel when everybody else remembers things that you can't even, you knew, once upon a time you knew those things. You can't even get them out yourself. And so that for me has been huge. When I see people, children, older, the grandparents, our parents, whatever, when I see them struggle and people commonly say, oh, they'll remember, or, oh, you remember that, or I just told you, how could you not remember? Or I just told you, or whatever it is, whatever the comment is. When I can't remember, I am telling you, I fucking can't remember, and there's nothing that you can do to get me to remember until my brain like recharges itself and can remember. Sometimes I can't remember it at all, but it certainly for sure has made me more aware and more compassionate to myself, to others as we get older. We, especially moms, we do things. We supercharge ourselves because there are little people that depend on us, even if they're big.
Yes, you do have big people.
They're all tall, big teenagers, but they depend on me. And we as women, we supercharge ourselves. And we just do it because we need to. It's kind of that fight or flight. But when that doesn't happen, when you can't pull out the old tricks, it's life-altering. So.
Oh my God, thank
Deep
you
breath.
so much.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, this was very helpful, very good. And you actually, in my opinion, articulated it very well. It was a great timeline. It puts it all into perspective and easy to understand.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We love you.
I love you guys too. Thanks for being patient with me.
Oh, I think we all deserve.
Oh my
I know
God!
we do,
I feel
but
like
I
I need to say that. Thanks for being patient with me. Holy
me
crap!
too. Yeah,
oh
I
my
know.
God,
I
we're
think-
all
Yeah,
yeah.
but we'll be fine. Like
Yeah.
everything is
We're
going to be
plugging
fine.
along.
We're plugging along, and I think
along,
we have
like-
each other, and I think
Yep.
we have. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. It's called Just Jack and Will. It's the from Will and Grace.
Oh,
And the man that helped create it, he said that the Will and Grace, the reason why they called it Will and Grace for the names,
yeah.
was because of an old adage about having will, like the power,
Oh, yes.
and to give grace to yourself.
Oh,
That's
I just
why-
got goosebumps. I love it.
when
I
you
feel
said
like that
it's-
could be a tattoo thing,
I
like
just-
Alex
that's
was
exactly-
talking about a couple weeks
That's
ago.
exactly where my brain
You
went.
just have
a
to give yourself
tattoo.
a will
Yeah.
and the
Just
grace.
like
and just
Alex's tattoos.
Yeah.
I forgot. Was one of them forgiveness? or
forgiveness and gratitude.
Gratitude, yeah.
Yeah.
So we need will and grace, forgiveness, gratitude.
Gratitude.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to have all these words tattooed all over our body.
Hey, I'm totally a fan of that.
Oh my
All
gosh.
right.
Well, thank you. Once again, this was this felt good today.
Yeah, it did.
All right.
Considering we were late and everything else was going
man.
on, it was really
You guys
well
don't
done.
even want to know.
It's all good.
All right.
All good.
Okay.
Will and
So,
grace.
Woohoo. Will and grace. And until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, just a reminder, this podcast is presented solely for entertainment and educational purposes. We are just friends, me, Amy, and Heather. We're not qualified professionals. This is not intended to replace any professional physician, doctor, medical advice, or what have you. We are just friends talking about our experiences and just want to make sure that you take the healthy route and be safe and happy. Love you.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate you listening to us, and we look forward to hanging out with you next Wednesday. Please join us. And in the meantime, please follow us on Instagram at The Real Exes Portland. Also, we would love to hear from you and hear some of your juicy stories. You can email us your stories at rxop.yourstory@gmail.com. Until next week, bye.
Bye.